Picture this. It's the final whistle, the buzzer sounds, or the race is over. The arena is silent and the weight of unfulfilled potential hangs in the air. You leave the pitch, court, or track knowing deep down that you didn't live up to the standards that you set for yourself. But there's a harsh reality. This frustration of a poor performance often goes beyond the immediate moment. It can have a detrimental impact on your entire career. Getting dropped or cut from teams, missing out on new contracts, or watching a scholarship slip through your fingers. Physically, there is rarely anything wrong because you know you're well conditioned and drilled. So what really is holding you back? The truth is, many athletes possess the physical strength and skill needed to excel. Yet something intangible often prevents them from reaching their potential: mental weakness. So in today's video, we delve into the 3 telling signs that your mentality is the stumbling block, preventing you from putting in the peak performances that you know you're capable of. And of course, we'll also give you the practical tips and tools to overcome these. So let's get started. As an athlete, you often find yourself facing a formidable opponent. And no, I'm not talking about those you're competing against. I'm talking about your own mind. Your mentality can of course be your greatest asset in fulfilling your potential. However, as you know, it can also be your worst enemy. And one of the most common reasons for this that I see when coaching athletes on their mental game is something called learned helplessness. This is the overarching concept of the 3 telling signs that your mentality is holding you back. And so before revealing those specific signs, let's outline what learned helplessness is and how it has most likely caused you to experience the self-sabotage that has led to your most frustrating performances. So learned helplessness is a concept that was first developed by one of the most influential psychologists in modern history, Martin Seligman. In its most simplest form, it can be defined as a condition in which a person has a sense of powerlessness arising from a traumatic event or a persistent failure to succeed. And so what this means in sport is feeling like an invisible chain is holding you back, preventing you from reaching your full potential. And in repeatedly facing adverse situations, it begins to make you feel as though your efforts are irrelevant and that you have no control over the outcomes of your performances. It's the football player who's on the fringes of the starting 11, but after a couple of months on the bench, he finally gives up his goal of becoming a starter because he feels there's nothing he can do to force his way into the team. He's learned to be helpless. And think about it. As an athlete, you will have experienced setbacks, failures, or tough moments. Maybe it's a string of losses, a series of missed shots, or constant criticism from coaches. Over time, these challenges can condition your mind into a state of learned helplessness. The dangerous part is that it's easy to condition yourself into this state without even realizing it. When you consistently face obstacle after obstacle and start accepting defeat as inevitable, it becomes a mental pattern. The mind, like a muscle, adapts to its training. If it learns to be helpless, breaking free becomes an uphill battle. And this is where we now must become fully aware of the 3 signs of learned helplessness, which are also known as the 3 Ps. Because if we recognize them in ourselves, we can then flip the script and move away from this state into what's called learned optimism, which is the process of recognizing and challenging negative thoughts in order to develop more positive behaviors. So first up is personalization. It's a mental trap that you fall into when you take things too personally without considering the broader context. Your mind immediately jumps to self-blame, thinking that these setbacks are entirely down to internal factors. Say, for example, you're up to bat in baseball and get struck out straight away without getting anywhere near the ball. 3 swings and a miss. You might then immediately be plagued with thoughts of, I'm just not good enough, damaging your self-esteem and confidence. But in that moment, you fail to recognize that you were up against the best pitcher in the league with the highest strikeout rate. And maybe also it was your first game back after 3 months out from injury, so you're going to be a little bit rusty. The point here is that if you fail to look at the broader set of factors, then you just get caught up in the loop of self-sabotage that comes through personalizing the failure too much. So to overcome this, you need to broaden your perspective. After a bad performance or failure of some kind, you need to ask yourself, what are 10 reasons why I failed? And the point here is definitely not to find excuses. It's more about finding reasons. So for example, last October, I finally ran my first marathon. I was aiming to run under 3:15 and I was on track for this for the first 18 miles. And then like many other first-time marathons, the wheels came off. I bonked, I hit the wall hard, and those last 8 miles were an absolute mess, meaning I finished in 3 hours and 29. Immediately after finishing, I got trapped in some thinking of, I'm not meant to run marathons and I'm just not a good runner naturally. But then on the train home, I ran through this 10 reasons why I failed question, and the more I thought about it, the more it made sense why I failed. This included only doing a 12-week plan instead of the usual 16 that most people do for marathons, especially beginners. Also, I booked accommodation quite late, meaning all the hotels were full, and so the night before, I stayed in a room above a pub that had karaoke going on until 10 p.m. And it was on a busy main road, so I was kept up half the night by sirens and drunk people and had one of the worst night's sleep of my life prior to the race. Again, I don't view these as excuses, but I view them as attributing factors to my failure. And they're not overly personal things. They have nothing to do with my character or personality. They are external things that I can do differently or correct next time to give myself a better chance of success. Doing something like this ensures that you keep perspective on the fact that failures in sport are often more situational than personal. And so the second P of learned helplessness is pervasiveness. This is the tendency to perceive a negative event in one area of your life as creating a domino effect, impacting many other aspects. It's a mindset that can cast a shadow over an athlete's entire journey. In sport, pervasiveness can be a stealthy intruder, expanding the impact of a setback far beyond its actual boundaries. Take, for instance, a golfer who has a rough day on the course, missing a few crucial putts early on. Instead of attributing it to the intricacies of the game, like being able to accurately judge the green or adjust due to some wind, pervasiveness overcomes him and he'll say things like, "I can't get that ball in the hole." This then has a bad knock-on effect to the rest of his game. Suddenly his driving is not as clean and he starts shanking his iron shots. So even though there was a little bit of an issue with the putting, suddenly all other aspects of his play have been negatively impacted. That is the damaging power of pervasiveness. One smaller thing that we make a mistake on can quickly snowball and destroy all other aspects of a performance because of making broader generalized statements to ourselves like, "I can't play today." To break free from pervasiveness, it's crucial to compartmentalize setbacks. Understand that a stumble in one area doesn't dictate your entire performance or even your entire athletic journey. This is why it's super important to adopt a targeted approach to improvement, address specific weaknesses without letting them dictate the narrative of your entire skill set. Similar to the last question we covered, another good thing to consider is simply asking yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I currently doing in X? And do that for all the different skills of your game or aspects of your sport. It may be in a sport like rugby you've made a few mistakes fumbling or dropping the ball when receiving passes and that you're currently a 5 out of 10 on that. But then your own passing is a 9 and your tackling is an 8. So it's important to separate these things in your mind so that the fumbling doesn't then have a negative knock-on effect to other stronger parts of your game. You should then obviously ask yourself, for the weaker areas, what can I do to raise this number? And it's then as simple as getting to work on these things through targeted drills and practice. Just seeing all the different skills that go into your sport as distinct will stop that cycle of pervasiveness, where literally one bad moment can infect and spread through the rest of your game. And so the final P of learned helplessness is permanence. This is the tendency to view a negative situation as enduring, unchangeable, and casting a permanent shadow over your athletic journey. It's a mindset that can imprison potential by convincing athletes that setbacks are here to stay. Imagine a setback occurs, perhaps a series of losses or a significant injury. Instead of seeing it as a temporary hurdle, it's very easy for your mind to perceive it as a permanent mark on your career, something that will never get better or improve. Consider specifically a weightlifter recovering from a significant injury. Permanence might convince them that their body is forever altered, diminishing their strength and potential, that they will never be able to lift as heavy as they once did again. This fixed mindset can impede the recovery process and hinder their return to peak performance. This is the essence of permanence, thinking that bad moments or runs in form are the new permanent reality and cannot change. Obviously, this is going to hold you back from making any form of progress and getting back into form. To break free from the clutches of permanence, the most practical thing to do is watch your language. It's so important to avoid permanence in your self-talk because what we say to ourselves is very easily internalized by both our conscious and unconscious mind. So if you say to yourself things like, "I'll never score again," you're compounding the likelihood of that becoming the case. Other phrases to avoid are things like, "I won't ever PR again," or "I'm always going to suck," or "I'll forever be a failure." But what should you replace such phrases with? What are some healthier forms of self-talk that can help you break away from permanence and start getting back to performing your best? Well, watch this video next to find out how the very elite use self-talk to enhance their mental game.